Hi everybody, thanks for coming. I'm Kevin Rudden, I'm the principal assessor. This is Sherrie Bates, the assistant assessor. So you get the two top people coming to talk to you today. And I know the topic is the senior work-off program, but we're also available to tell you about all the exemptions seniors are eligible for. The work-off program is quite simple. It's a way of, as we say, volunteering your time to a town department, and the money that you would have earned is credited directly against your tax bill. Right now, the town has a cap of $1,000 per person on the program per year. We are looking to raise that to $1,500, but we're trying to find out if we need to go to town meeting for that or the select board can do it. The pay is minimum wage, $15 an hour. And if the cap is $1,000 and the pay is $15 an hour, that works out to about 66 and a half hours per year to earn that maximum. Applicants are selected based on income and need. You do have to be 65 or older. We don't have a huge onrush of people applying, so there are slots open. What happens is the application is available here. It's on the website for the senior center as well. It's also on the assessor's page website, and it's on the human resources website for the town. We also have applications at Town Hall, in the human resources office, and the assessor's office. And the process is very simple. You fill out an application. It goes to HR. Well, the assessors look at it, and we verify that you're a homeowner in town. We hand walk it downstairs to HR. They look through it. And then Lisa, who's the director here, will be working with HR to identify what town departments are looking for people to volunteer. And then you get selected and work with the department head. So for instance, I know I would like to get somebody in the assessor's office who could come in at lunchtime for an hour, 4 days a week. And just if Sherry's usually out on the road, or at this time of year I'm behind closed doors working on values, someone can answer the phone, and all they would have to say is they'll call you back in an hour. If I don't have that person right now, that means I have to take her off the road, and she's doing less inspecting, which we like to do. I know HR has somebody. I know sometimes if somebody's got a mailing to go out, they might need somebody extra. And so it's not work. Nobody's going to ask you to go out and pave roads for the highway department. But I know the select board office yesterday was looking up property owners' addresses for a mailing they had to do. That's just clerical. It's that type of thing. The program is also open for veterans, so I could tell you that if a veteran were to apply, and most of the veterans today are a lot younger and physically more able, if there was something that involved like heavy lifting or something like that, it would probably go to them. I know in Mendon, where I live, we have a veteran helping with the assessor's office with the house inspections when a new house is being built, and things like that. And then what happens is you do not get taxed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, a rarity, but the IRS considers it taxable wages, so the town does have to withhold and give you a W-2 at the end of the year. And whatever the net pay that you would receive, which would be a check at the end of the year, you don't get the check. The town treasurer, instead of handing you the check, credits that money against the property tax you have due. So right now the maximum is $1,000. If you don't work the full 66 hours, it's basically whatever it is at the $15 an hour. But it's a chance, if you'd like to volunteer your time, to offset some of the tax bills. Being candid, we know in the last couple of years during COVID, the values have gone up, the taxes have gone up. It's hard for everybody. It's especially hard for you guys on a fixed income. We know that. This is another way of helping you lower it as much as we can help. The exemptions do that as well. So the program is designed to be simple. There's a couple of things we're trying to change, which I mentioned at the beginning. One is increasing the limit to $1,500 a year, which is then would be 100 hours a year. The other is the last time the town looked at this, believe it or not, was 11 years ago. At that time, the town declined to opt into one thing, which I'd like to opt in now, which is if you're physically unable to do the work, a family member or a designate, let's say your neighbor decides they'd like to do it to help you, would then be allowed to take your place and do the work, but the money would still go to your tax bill. We don't have permission to do that yet, and right now we're trying to get that probably on the next spring's annual town meeting if we have to go that route. If not, just before the select board, probably in October, to see if they would add those two things. I think they're very important to add so you have a full program. That's really the nuts and bolts of the program. It's you apply, you find out what people are asking, and the HR people at Town Hall will be calling the department heads and saying, what do you have? Or do you know this program exists and what do you have? And then that way, when you apply, they'll be able to say, Kevin and the assessors want somebody to come in an hour a day for 4 days. In HR, we want somebody to help with mailing out paperwork. And this department wants that. And then it's up to you to decide if you want to do that. It's voluntary. And that's basically the program. It's pretty cut and dried. It hasn't been well publicized in the last few years. And there's only been one or two people. And we're trying to make sure that, we have a full HR department now. Lisa came on board about a year ago. We have a new treasurer collector. I've only been the principal assessor for a year. We're trying to make sure that people know about it and participate in it if you want to. The applications are out there now. I know one person's working and another one applied, and I think they're looking for a position for he or she. Because we haven't contacted all the department heads. And I plead guilty. I forgot to say I want somebody to do the phones. And I know I'll start that person now. All the exemptions that exist, unfortunately, the majority of them, the limits on the income were done in the 60s and 70s. And they haven't kept pace with inflation. And it may sound surprising to people, but the Massachusetts Association of Assessors actually has bills in the State House to raise them up. And we always get asked, wait a minute, you're the tax guys, you want to give us bigger breaks? Yeah. Because who do you come to when you have a problem with the bill? You usually start here in this building, or you go up to us and the treasurer collector and say, help. So we feel the pain. I'd also note, although I probably don't look it, I am 65 and above. I qualify for these things the day I retire. So I'm very careful about knowing about them and making sure people get what they can. I also took care of my parents before they passed and really learned firsthand as an adult when people are on fixed incomes and a property tax bill goes up, what effect it has on them. If you come to the assessor's office, there are 4 of us in the office. The clerks work part-time, so there may be one or the other. But any of us can help you sit down and do that, and it's confidential. You know, we'll say, we need to know your findings. Just by the way, on all these applications, you know, we deal in the realm of public records. By state law, all of this is confidential. Nobody but the people looking at your paperwork will know what you make or what you do. And to tell you the truth, after looking at the sheet to see if you qualify, you know, the paperwork's locked up, nobody gets to see it. But yes, we're more than willing to work with anybody who thinks they're eligible for something to sit down with you privately and say, yes, you are, no, you're not. The biggest comment we get is, why does it start at age 65 and not age 60? State law. You know, when I talk to state legislatures, I remind them, you set these limits when people's average property tax bill might have been $2,000 or $3,000. They're not that anymore. They're more 5 and 6 and 7 and up, depending on your house. And they don't, you know, when a tax bill was $2,000 or $3,000, giving somebody the ability to knock it down by $1,000 was big money. It's not significant help anymore, candidly, if your bill is 5 and 6 and up, to knock $1,000 off it. You know, back then it might have been 50, 40, 50% off. Now it's 20% off. So that's why I want to get the limits raised up. But for now, we're dealing with what we have. The legislature does tinker with these things just about every year. And we try to make sure the town, if the laws change, the town goes to the new level. Again, our purpose is to try to make sure you're aware of what's out there, and if you qualify, partake. So again, if you want to come in and sit down with us privately, we'll tell you if you are or are not eligible, and maybe help you find something you are.
I would really appreciate that.
We have this little booklet on our website every year that is, I think, 5 pages of info that we try to put in common English on each exemption. But when you read the background of it, it's like this long. And then we also have to look at whether you own your house as you, whether it's in a trust, other forms of ownership, because that affects, excuse me, some of these things. There are some things coming for renters that we don't have yet, but they're wending their way through the legislature. We do have a bill that was passed at last year's annual town meeting in Holliston to give Holliston its own exemption, which is called a senior means tested exemption. That is probably will not get through the legislature till sometime in calendar 2024. Those little home rule bills get passed. It's usually just a matter of waiting. That one, if you've heard of the, on the state income tax, there's something called the circuit breaker exemption. If you're eligible for the circuit breaker, stay tuned, because that's going to make you eligible when this finally clears the legislature. That's going to make you automatically eligible for that. And that could be another $1,000 to $2,000 a year. That's not there yet, but hopefully for tax year, fiscal year 25, that'll be available. And that's one we put in just, again, for the same reason of the bills climbing up. But it doesn't exist right now, unfortunately.
These are statutory, so they're guidelined under Mass General laws. And there are criteria for the different types of exemptions. One of the exemptions that we have is for people age 70 and older. Now, the criteria begins as of July 1st of each year, so the homeowner would need to be 70 on or before July 1st. And then their income levels could be no more than $20,000 if they're single, or $30,000 if they're married. Along with looking at the income levels, we also have to look at the assets. Now, the assets are not your home. Your home is excluded from the application. But it would be any monies that you have in the bank, savings, CD, checking accounts. For a single person, you could have no more than $28,000 in the bank, and for a married couple, it's $30,000. And that particular exemption allows for a $1,000 exemption off of the real estate tax bill. Now, if for some reason someone who is age 70 and older comes in and their income or their asset levels are a little bit over that, we can look at another exemption called a Clause 17D. That covers people who are widows, widowers, minor children of deceased parents, and persons aged 70 and older. This particular exemption does not have any income requirements. It has an asset requirement of $40,000. And again, that's monies in the bank, savings, CD, and checking accounts.
And by requirement, you mean limit.
Limit.
Okay.
So you can have no more than 40,000 is the limit on that one. And that one is the
$350.
$350 exemption off of your tax bill.
If I could do one.
Yeah.
You're all familiar with the community preservation surcharge that the townspeople voted about 10 years ago to put on your tax bill. Seniors are eligible to ask for an exemption from that. Now, I know it may sound silly when these are like $140 a year, but if you qualify, it's $140 less you have to pay. So you can always come in and ask if you qualify.
The name of that again?
It's the community preservation exemption. Again, that's the 1.5% fee that goes on it's the value of your property minus $100,000. You figure out the taxes for that at that level, and then you multiply that by 1.5%. It's averaging somewhere in the between $120 and $200 per household in town. But again, if it's that much more you can get off the bill, as my mother used to say, you know, find a penny and they keep picking them up, they all add up. And $120 off your bill is better than none off your bill. So.
And when a person comes in, especially a new applicant, we're going to look at
All of them.
all of them and see
All of the
what is
exemptions.
the best one that we can give you, what is the highest level that we can get you on for an exemption. And we're going to go through all of the paperwork and do our best with working with you and the information that you bring into us to get you the highest amount that we possibly can.
Hey, just if I could, once you get an exemption, they have to be applied for every year. We automatically, the next year, send you the application. You don't have to worry about missing the deadline because we're going to send it to you. We start taking those by law on July 1, and we could take them right through to April 1st. In late June, early July, if you have one now, you'll get another application with a letter from us automatically. So let's say you did come in, ma'am, and you're qualified. You don't have to worry about, I got to remember that date next year. We're going to mail it to you again. If you have any other exemption, you get them together. Most of these you qualify for one and that's it, except for community preservation. You can get that and the other ones. But the circuit breaker related one, when that passes, it means you can qualify for the 350 or the 1,000 and do that one on top of it. And by the way, if you get an exemption, you can do the Workoff on top of that. It's not one or the other. That's important to know. They're meant to be layered, but you can't get the 350 and the 1,000 exemption. You get one if you qualify, but the work-off does not affect that other than we look at the W-2. We don't want to knock people off that. That's very important. So again, if you have questions, come to the assessor's office. We'll sit down and talk to you. The current one that Sherrie mentioned is $1,000. It's actually $500 under the state law. Then the state law got modified about 10 years ago to say a town on its own can vote to increase it to $1,000. So we did that at a Holliston town meeting. The Assessors Association has a bill in right now in the current session that would let a town, by its choice, go from 1,000 to 2,000. So if that passes, we'll probably bring it to a town meeting vote to go up to the 2,000. But typically, it's somebody files a bill with the legislature, they consider it, they have a very long system. First you file it, then they decide what committee hears it, then the committee hears it. If the committee votes favorable, it needs 3 separate readings in the House, then it goes over to the Senate. It needs 3 separate readings in the Senate, and then if they pass it slightly differently, they have to have a House-Senate joint committee to argue out the differences and send it back to all of them, not for 3 readings again, just for 1. And then if it passes, it goes to the governor, who could decide whether or not to sign it. And then if it's a local option, you wait to the next town meeting to put it on the warrant if you want to do that. And in our case, the Board of Assessors would have to say, yes, we support that by a majority of 3. Then it would go to the warrant, and then the Finance Committee would have to say yes or no. And then the people would have to say yes or no. State laws give a lot of flexibility to towns to set it up the way they want to. Depending on the wording, a lot of them just say to be decided by the assessors. But when the selectmen adopted the program 11 years ago, they put specific wording in guidelines that the town officials at that time proposed that set it up the way it is. We just rewrote the guidelines, and the HR department's reviewing them right now, and then we want to go back to the selectmen and say, these guidelines are more modern and comply. But you have the $1,000, the $1,500 by law cap is in there by law, minimum wage is the law, and then it's a question of how much money each town appropriates toward this. Because believe it or not, you have to, if we're giving you the break, the money still has to come from somewhere. So that money is actually appropriated into an account that this is drawn out of. And the town has to decide each year how much they want to put in that. And right now I think we have, I want to say 12 or 15,000 set aside in this program for this year. But we can vary that each year. But yes, state laws oftentimes say, let the town develop the guidelines, but again, so we're at 1,000 and the state law was raised to 1,500. We've never adopted that, so that's what I want to get to that. But yeah, it's quite frankly, if you went from town to town to town, you'd probably see about 8 different ways of doing it, and it's what works for that town. I will tell you, one of my pet peeves, she's heard it, is if you went to all 350 cities and towns' websites and looked on the assessor's page for description of these exemptions, they're all different. And I keep saying, why don't we just have one set of words that are legal and easy to read, and then we all just take them and put them off the website. So no matter what town you look at, it says the same thing in easy to understand English. But then that would mean each town has to say, we want our website to look that way. I know Sherrie's been trying to modernize our website to make it easier to find things. Because right now, if you want to look for the exemptions, you have to look under, you go to the Town of Holliston website, then our department website, then there's a button that says online forms, then you go into that, then you go down the list. We've been working to make it much easier. Just look at the front page and it says this exemption, that exemption. Click on it and there's the rules of the application.
And actually, if you go on it right now, you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen on the assessors page, you'll see exemptions for seniors, exemption for surviving spouse. And if you click on one of those buttons, there's going to be a whole description as to what the criteria is, what the qualifications are, and then there's a link for the application with that. So trying to make it very user-friendly, the information clear,
And more
and
info.
easy to read, and more information, and just trying to get all of this information out to everybody the best way that we can.
I always say if I can't, if it's more than 4 mouse clicks, it's too much. The ideal world, it should be click, you're at the Holliston site, click to assessors, and actually, let's see, it's Holliston, then departments, that's 2. Well, that's 1. Then assessors, that's 2. You should see it right there when you hit that page, that's 3. If I got to do 2 or 3 more, I'm lost. We are on the main floor, not the basement, not the upper thing. We're near the parking lot side of the building, the back parking lot that goes up like a 45-degree. I call it the stair stepper because we go to our car every afternoon. Yeah. We're there. We're across from the treasurer collector's office where you pay your tax bill. If you come in through the front door, we're the last office on the left. If you come in from that side door near the parking lot, we're the first door on your right. No, when we're there, let's see. Well, you come in at 8.
I'm usually in by 8.
So we have people usually there 8 to 4:30 on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 8 to 7 p.m. on Tuesdays, and 8 to 1 on Fridays. The town hall closes at 1 o'clock on Fridays. Although I've been known to make appointments on Friday afternoons if people can't come in till then, or even Saturdays. So we're flexible. We try to help people. And if you can't make it to town hall, I don't want to make it say it's common practice, but if for whatever reason you can't make it to town hall due to mobility issues, we've been known to go to people's houses. Our goal is to help you. One of the things I hope to do, since she updates the website, is those monthly question and answer I've been putting in the Holliston Reporters. So we started that in January, so there's 9 of them. To also put them on our website, because believe it or not, they are questions asked by people at our window that I hear over and over. I don't make them up. I say, what's one of the most common questions we hear? We put them up there. One of them I did back early in the year is, what's the difference between an abatement and exemption? I also had one called, hey, I turned 65, do I get a tax break now? And I believe the opening sentence was, unfortunately, not always. And again, they're set by state law. A lot of states have exemptions that we don't have, and usually I can tell by the questions people ask that they moved in from another state. Because they'll come in and they'll say, where's my residential exemption? Like if you all lived in Florida right now as seniors, actually as anybody, you'd be getting 10%, your property taxes written down by 10% a year. They just give that to everybody. But the state pays for it. And what we also get is people retiring down south to states that have this, asking us for letters saying we're not giving them that exemption up here. So I sort of have a blanket letter that says, no, Massachusetts does not provide this exemption under law. So other states have things, and you may talk to people, or if your kids live in other states, they may say, hey, they have this where I live. Each state has their own laws, and they're not in line either. That's why, I read the AARP magazine every month in the little newsletter that comes out, because they always tell you, well, in Maryland they're doing this, or in this state they're doing that. I go, we don't have that. So it gets confusing for people if you have, somebody moves into the area to be with their children and they go, well, I had that. Or again, their children moved there or they retired to another state and say, well, they have this. And every state is different. I could tell you, because one of my best friends moved there, in South Carolina, after you've lived in the state for a year, and you are 65 and the owner of property, after 1 year of living there, so if you grew up there, you get it automatically. They don't pay the school portion of the property tax. But it also means that people from 18 to 64 and 364 days are paying a higher rate to offset that. So nobody gets away with a freebie. Everybody pays it that way. But if you guys have any questions about anything related to your taxes, these exemptions, the Workoff program, call us. We're 529-0604. We all answer the phone. If you want the top guys, ask for Sherrie or Kevin, because we don't usually answer the phone. And we'll answer your questions. So again, it's 529-0604, which is easier than trying to give you our emails because they're like that long. What did I say? Oh, it's 429-0604. I'm sorry. Thank you guys for coming.